y'all. Maria here from the Concentrated Podcast. Today, I'm joined by our producer extraordinaire, Jose.
So,
And listen, we wanted to record just a quick and dirty video to put out there about Blerdcon 2021. Concentrated Podcast is doing a full episode on it that'll be available on Monday. But in the interim, we had some thoughts, and we thought that it may not hurt to just jump on and talk about it a little bit. So, for starters, for those of you that may not have been aware, Blerdcon 2021 was this past weekend, July 16th, or excuse me, July, technically the 15th if you were a VIP, to July 18th. We attended all 3 days of the event. This is year number 4, I believe.
yeah, I think somebody said 4.
Yeah, of this con. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Blerdcon is exactly what it sounds like. It is a con, a regular Comic-Con type situation, specifically for nerds of color. The Blerd is obviously Black, but it is super inclusive, and they welcome everybody to come, whether you are minority or not. It tends to be a lot of Black and brown folks. It is a beautiful event because you just get all of that melanated excellence in one place when it comes to the world of geekdom. But, you know, there was some good and some bad this year.
Yeah.
With them coming back from obviously not having the con in 2020 because of the pandemic. And, you know, before we get into it, I do want to give Hilton George, who I believe is the chair, and the rest of the Blerdcon team a ton of credit. They pulled off this event. From our understanding is that they planned it in like less than 5 months because they weren't even sure if they were going to do it this year.
Yeah.
So especially for the amount of time that they took, I think it was a success. What do you think?
For 5 months, it was really good. The blueprint had kind of been there, so the downfalls, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a little bit, were there. But like anything can be improved upon. Yeah, I mean, for 5 months, not knowing if we were going to come out of this pandemic and be able to even have Blerdcon, I would still view it as a success, even for just putting it on and getting more than 50 people in a space. That was pretty dope.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised at how many people still came through, because two things that they did that we know rubbed a whole hell of a lot of people the wrong way, but I think was the right decision, was that you had to prove that you were fully vaccinated. So just having one shot didn't cut it. You had to show that you had both shots already,
Yeah.
Unless you got the one shot one. That's what, the Pfizer one, I think.
Yeah, well, Johnson,
whatever one it was. And also you had to wear a mask throughout the event while you were inside the venue, which was the Crystal City Hyatt, where they do it every year, or where they've done it every year thus far. So, you know, ton of credit for them pulling it off and doing this thing that, you know, it really, I was surprised at how many people were not happy that they were asking for you to be fully vaccinated and have your and wear a mask.
I think that what ends up happening is that as the pandemic gets a little bit further and further out of our view, a lot of folks are going to forget. Kudos to them. I feel like when they were doing a lot of the planning, they were like, well, we could get 20,000 people here if we don't ask for fully vaccination, or we can get 10,000 people here if we let them know up front that we're going to be vaccinated. So, I mean, kudos to them. Again, like I said, there is plenty of things that we could talk about that the board maybe didn't do well, but kudos to them to keeping everybody safe. They definitely left money on the table, because they could have just opened it up and not asked for any vaccination cards whatsoever. But they did ask for vaccination cards. They wanted to make sure everybody was safe. They know we're not that far removed outside of COVID, if at all removed from COVID. So kudos to them. I do appreciate them taking everyone's health and safety into account over dollars and cents.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, especially when you think like AwesomeCon is right around the corner here in the DC area, and their side is like, hey, be safe, you should get vaccinated, but they have not made like a hard line stance that you have to be vaccinated or you have to wear a mask or you have to do anything. And so, we're going to AwesomeCon. It should be interesting to see. I know I'm gonna be masked up and I am vaccinated. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. So, now that we've kind of gotten, Jose was a teacher. I used to work in leadership. And one of the things that people always tell you is that when you're going to talk about something, when you're going to review somebody, you want to do like that compliment sandwich where you kind of give them the good stuff on the ends and then the bad stuff in the middle. And we're going to do this the same way.
Yeah.
So, I think that we've started with the good thing that they did with, number one, being able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Number two, getting as many people there as they got there safely, right? Because we're days removed, and I feel fine. I don't think that I got anything.
Nah, not at all.
We're good. But the third thing that I want to give them kudos for before we start giving a little bit of more critical critique is the fact that they still kept that same energy. Like when we went to our first Blerdcon in 2019, what I loved was just that feeling, that energy that you got. And I still think that even though folks may not have been happy about the mask, we still had that energy.
I feel like it's the energy that'll never go away. I mean, you can call this whatever you want. It could be Blerdcon, it could be name it. I feel like the energy that comes with it is what I'm actually paying for. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more later about like some of the downfalls that happen inside this sandwich. But if I'm still talking about the top layer in the bun, kudos goes to, I like being with the people that show up in that space. And earlier when you were saying that it was inclusive, I think that was how come you saw some of the faces from potential allies show up as well. I think that they like the idea that maybe somebody in their circle or their sphere told them, like, if you want to be able to cosplay and not have to worry about it being completely authentic, or someone coming up and saying Wario doesn't wear this, Princess Peach can't do that, this can't happen, you're like a size 6, sweetie, and you need to be a size 4, sis. Like, none of that's gonna happen. Kudos to when it was started. Just, it's been passed down, and so it had to have started at the top, but it's been passed down to the inclusivity is translated from the fact that it's just not okay. There is not going to be any body shaming allowed. If a person was to body shame somebody else, everybody that is not the person being attacked would, in my feeling, would stand up and say, that's not the sphere. We're not here to do any of that. We're not here to rip it down. So to your point, I feel like whatever I paid, I'm paying for the experience of being with those folks. And sometimes the price is worth, sometimes it's worth the price of admission.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that, there were issues. We can't sit here and pretend that there weren't. This wasn't our first time going to Blerdcon. I've talked to a couple of friends, and it's really interesting because for folks that it was their first time, a lot of the issues that we're going to talk about, they didn't notice, it didn't affect them because they were just so wrapped up in the energy, because the energy is infectious.
Very much.
However, being folks that have been to Blerdcon before, there were definitely some deficiencies. This time around that you've got to talk about. So I think let's knock the elephant out the room first, because it's the biggest thing. So unless you've been under a rock, if you're in the Blur community, you have heard about the controversy that has come about with the cosplay contest at Blerdcon. We decided before we started recording that we're not going to go too deep into it.
Not at all.
We're just going to give kind of high level what happened. A young white woman was there as an ally with her friend. She had a lovely cosplay that she had handmade, and she was not going to enter the contest. And one of her friends, who is a Black woman, encouraged her to go ahead and enter the contest. Now, Blerdcon's cosplay contest is not like ones that are done at many other cons, both larger and smaller and same size, where there are multiple categories. It's just enter the cosplay contest and you've got first, second, and third place and a couple of honorable mentions. Well, lo and behold, for the second time in Blerdcon's brief history, a white woman won. So this young woman won the contest. Arguably, I think that there were better costumes than hers, not to take anything away from what she had done, but she won. And we lost our goddamn minds, basically, between Facebook, Twitter, wherever the conversation could be had, it was being had. There was a lot of anger and frustration. I want to admit I was very disappointed with the situation. No, fuck that. I was pissed because at the end of the day, like, of course, in Blerdcon, which is supposed to be, black centric, minority inclusive, we have a white woman win this contest when there were lots of fantastic cosplayers that were not white. And at the end of the day, the judges have come under a whole lot of heat. The organization has come under a whole lot of heat. There are pros and cons for both sides of it. We're not going to get into all of that. You make your own opinion. I still stand by mine that, yes, you can't legally tell someone that they can't participate in something because they're, of a certain ethnic group.
Can't do it.
But at the end of the day, good allies know how to read the room. And the young lady, unfortunately, didn't read the room, has regretted it, has since made a public statement that she's returning the prizes and everything else. But it really blew up into a situation. And my thing is, I think regardless of where you stand on it, there is trauma. And that's the thing that people aren't really talking about, the fact that there's trauma associated with this. So that is what it is. If you want a whole breakdown of all of the messiness, you can go right online. You can go to Facebook. You can go to Twitter. All that shit's still up there and you can look at it. I think the only thing that I'll say, and I don't know how you feel about this, is my only, outside of the decision and how the judges reacted when they started getting heat for the decision, I think that the biggest mistake was the mishandling of the communication once people started airing their grievances.
I think that's true. I think that if we're going to do the sandwich and we're going to do the bread, and now we're talking about the meat here, there definitely just doesn't. When you're running an organization and you're running a convention and it lands on you, it would have been okay just to say, you know what, we really hadn't thought this out previously, and in the future, thanks for your feedback, we are going to make categories and we're going to break things down, hearing your feedback. And honestly, if someone had just gotten in front of it and just said, you're right, this, we understand, blah, 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 and let's go ahead in the future, this is a good takeaway, let's learn from it and let's move forward from here. I think that at least could have quelled some of the anger. I feel like when your response on everyone, not just the organizations, but when your response is to kind of pass the buck along and just say, oh, well, it's not us, it's this, that, and I feel like there was not knocking them, not knocking the judges necessarily. They were, if there's no categories, and so therefore you're just judging overall. I get that some of them were saying we were judging on the authenticity and how much handmade stuff there was in this person. That's all true. You don't have to go very far except look down or look up, and Blerdcon was everywhere. You kind of got to read the room a little bit in that situation. I would have liked there to have been a second said, is this the right move though necessarily? But again, like I said, I only put a little bit of onus on the judges, if any at all. In truth, the pageant wasn't, or the costume, whatever you want to call it, the contest, it wasn't, the parameters weren't set up well. And so you can only blame any of the judges that you want to a little bit. What I will say, because I am not going to be on the podcast to talk about it. I hear folks when they say, when they go the whole Stokely Carmichael, Black Panthers, an eye for an eye, let's go get them back. And so when folks were trying to set world to the fire and basically in DMs and threatening people, there, in my opinion, there need to be allies. Blerdcon shouldn't just be shut down to only people of color. In the truth, there do need to be allies, and allyship is very important. and bringing those and bringing folks along to try to see like the other side of things, you're going to push people off when they are offering allyship. This cannot be done. I mean, unless you're just completely insurrecting, this is not going to get done. So I will say, for my part, I think that being upset was perfect. But how you go about it, it definitely matters.
Yeah, it was the bullying and the messages in the DM, and then when somebody called that out, then it turned into, I want the receipts. White women always claiming blah blah blah, and there is some truth to that. Let's not act like there isn't. But at the end of the day, if we first start our communication with compassion and then go from there, we can probably get a lot further along if we, instead of instantly going to, I'm gonna call you out your name, you ain't shit, blah 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 blah. Because the thing that got me, because the young woman was a little heavier, and let's be real, we know that if you are fluffy, like I am fluffy, I could never put on a cosplay and go to AwesomeCon and expect for my cosplay to be respected, no matter how good it is, because I'm overweight and I can't do an OnlyFans in my cosplay as a thirst trap. Like, that's just what it is.
Can't do it.
And this young woman fell into that category. She was not a little girl. And so for people to go online and just immediately go to like, oh, that fat bitch, and blah 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 blah,
it's a lot.
Y'all were doing a lot. And we need to do better. We can absolutely have an opinion. We can absolutely be angry and outraged and upset. But there's just a better way, a more constructive way, I think, to handle that. And the last thing I'm going to say about it, the biggest problem that I had with all of this actually was the hop-ons on Twitter and on Facebook too that ain't never fucking been to a con, ain't never been to Blerdcon, aren't even really blurs, but had all types of opinions online about what happened. Just flaming the fire. You know what I mean? And in this day and age, you can't get away from the trolls, but y'all, we bitch about the trolls. So how are we going to be the trolls?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every misery loves company. I mean, it's you get on Twitter and you see something's trending where there's controversy, and you can't help but jumping on it. I mean, there's plenty of times where you watch TV and it's supposed to be news and it's all just entertainment because there's somebody that's screaming at the top of their voice trying to just be seen, and it's not the news. I mean, it's sad in the day of times that we live in, where it's like there's no such thing as news anymore. It's just entertainment. I mean, like I said, that's going to happen. They were always going to jump on, but I don't feel like it ever needed to get to that extent in the first place. Anyway, if the cooler heads had kind of prevailed and some compassion had been shown, I think that could have been kind of avoided, and it didn't need to be taken to the Twitter streets for streets of rage too.
Well, but here's the thing that kills me, and maybe I'm fucked up for this. Everybody was up in arms, rightfully so, about the cosplay contest, but the biggest shortcoming to me was actually the VIP experience.
So this patty is going to get a little bit thicker.
This patty, it's going to be more of a Big Mac than a quarter pounder. There's going to be some layers here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be honest. Like I said earlier, I paid for the experience of going to Blerdcon. I paid to be around fellow Blerds and to have safe space. And so I'm going to go into this, and I'm not going to go too deep. There were certain things promised, and what I will say is this is the shortcoming. If you promise certain things are going to happen, you have to fulfill it. Now, the extent that you said that certain things were going to be happening, you didn't specify. So when I get up into the VIP and there's games and it's really well air conditioned, perfect. I love it. I'm already in heaven right there. If you just had some bottled water and honestly some goldfish crackers in the corner, you would have sold me. And I wouldn't be here today saying you missed on that one. It was a strike.
Yeah.
Listen, if you had actually had some like little sandwich wraps or something like that, I would be shutting my mouth to this day. I feel like if you promise something though to be a little bit extra, and that's the reason why we're shelling out a little bit extra, it needs to be delivered. Even the Miss site should have never been on that. And so I'm not exactly sure I think I heard someone say that because it was kind of thrown together, there wasn't a chance to maybe do some departments and stuff like that. But I always feel like your VIP department, whoever's the head of it, is definitely in charge of, let's at least go to Costco and make sure there's some bottled water and some Cheez-Its for these folks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest thing, because the main things that were promised in the VIP that I think people were really upset about, fucking snacks. Let's just start there. When you say refreshments isn't just tap water in the, you know, outside, not even in the VIP room, but outside the VIP room with melted ice. That is not refreshments
at all.
You know, I think that anytime, so if y'all don't know, the regular ticket was $65. The VIP ticket was $200.
Yep.
So you're pretty much charging damn near 3 times as much for the VIP experience. And like the main reason that people got it was because we know how the hotel is laid out. Their AC situation is shitty, and then they've got like this full ass like glass thing, rotunda, I guess,
which I'm sure is beautiful in September,
right? But basically, it's like being a bunch of ants under a little microscope or a magnifying glass cooking when you're in there. So having a room with dedicated AC, that's great. But you promised the room, you promised refreshments, you promised access to like panels and things like that. And they did do this one thing with like the audio where you could literally listen to 3 different channels. So you could be in one panel and listening to another. I think they could have sold it a little better, because let's say you're just tired and want to be in your room in the hotel, or you want to eat and you want to still listen to a panel. I think it made more sense then. But if you're in a panel, you should be paying attention to the panel you're in. So I don't know how I don't work that way. I can't be in a panel listening to another panel. All that said, I think that there was just a huge misfire with what was promised. And then even the registration situation. Y'all say there's going to be a party on Thursday. The itinerary or the program schedule wasn't released until Tuesday night. Which means that nobody knew the times of anything. So if you were traveling from out of town, which a lot of people were, you would have had no idea that VIP registration was only from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the party started at either 8 or 9. So if you were flying in and you were just getting to the hotel, you missed one of the only events that was for VIPs only because you weren't able to register. You just weren't. And so like that was a big thing. And I think that the fact that we all believe in this con, we all want to see this con grow, just fucking communicate. Let us know. If somebody would have said to me, if I would have gotten an email on Wednesday or even Thursday morning, like, look, y'all, we know we promised all of these things. We're not going to be able to deliver on all of these things. Please bear with us, blah, blah, blah. I can live with that.
We can at least go with that.
Right. Nothing was communicated. You didn't find out shit until you were there. Like, what about this and what about that? And it was nothing.
It was nothing. I mean, listen, communication is key. I think everybody would have at least rolled with it and things like that. I mean, listen, the Maid Cafe wasn't like there were problems with that, but you don't hear me complaining about that because at the end it delivered enough, and so it's not. And shout out to Michiko, who was our waitress, who laid it all out for us. And so in that case, there was no complaining, or at least on our table, because we knew coming in what to expect. And so the expectation, the bar wasn't set any higher than it needed to be set. So shout out to Michiko at the Maid Cafe.
We heard Michiko. She was great. But to that extent, this goes back to the planning, because shame on you, Hilton. You've got all these people here, and if you had an opportunity to experience the Maid Cafe, the food wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. But you go for the experience.
Absolutely.
Well, the poor young men and women who were working the Maid Cafe, they ended up having extra pressure because the hotel's kitchen that was providing the food was fucked. I mean, we had a 45, because they gave you 45 minutes, and poor Machiko got us our water, but we had to wait on drinks. We never got our drinks. They ended up having to refund us for that. We sat for 45 minutes plus another 15 before our food even came out.
That's true.
And then when it came out, the orders were all messed up. That wasn't on her. that was on the kitchen. Hilton, you're making a lot of money. Y'all could have done, or Hyatt, I'm sorry, not Hilton. Hyatt, y'all are making a lot of money off this event. Y'all could have done a hell of a lot better than that with that kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like I said, in the future, it's worth talking about maybe having folks of color who already kind of give off a lot of heat, having 20,000 of us in a small hotel with a glass ceiling isn't necessarily the best place. But listen, again, I'm going to show up next year anyway. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah. So I think that out of everything, the VIP experience outside of the cosplay was the main place that you could complain. I don't think the vendors, while we didn't have as many, that's understandable. It's COVID. A lot of people canceled. I did have one itsy bitsy food complaint. We had the food truck rally again. Yeah. There were some really good trucks out there.
There were.
But Blerdcon, I need you, if you're doing something and you're not going to have a truck, like take it off the site. Because there was one truck specifically that I was super excited was going to be there because it was Puerto Rican food. And they weren't there. And we thought, oh, maybe it's just because of the day. So I actually called the restaurant. Come to find out, they didn't even have a food truck anymore. They
sold it to get the restaurant.
They sold it to open the restaurant. And they were like, what? We don't even know what you're talking about. Like, we've never signed up. So just...
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's just, I think the devil's in the details. Mm-hmm. Just communicate a little bit. You know what I mean? Having had owned a food truck and ran a food truck, and actually been on the food truck, like running it, like 24 hours, like you got to know what you're signing up for. We did a Cinco de Mayo event, and when they were like, give us 12 hours, we almost packed like the apocalypse was coming. So I don't blame any of the food vendors there, especially if they've never done a quote unquote 24 hours. But I mean, it's food.
Yeah.
It's food.
You got to eat.
The other thing I'll say is also with the location that maybe in the future, maybe a separate location may want to be thought about, only because there needs to be food trucks there, just because the other eating options are just so far away. And so that's the only other thing I'll say about that.
Yeah. And also, if the 24-hour food truck rally is great, but the title is a little misleading because obviously these trucks are manned by people.
Yeah.
The Jamaican food truck, the food was amazing. But that poor woman and her husband, like they had to close down a couple times. Yeah, it was really hot. They sold out of food multiple times. If you came out during one of the parties or in the middle of the night, your food options were hella light. Like you might as well just go ahead and place an Uber Eats order because a lot of the food trucks were already closed.
Yeah.
And stayed closed for hours. It wasn't like a quick little...
I mean, if anybody had problems with the pricing, like just to let you know, the food trucks didn't have anywhere to plug into. So they were all running on their generators. So you may have actually been paying for the price of their gas to run 24 hours. Just speaking technically as a food truck operator in the past, in a previous life, you were paying for their gas. So if you're like, this was this and this costed this much, but it maybe $3 or $4 was overpriced, well, you're paying for the price of that truck staying open.
I mean, but shit, it was still cheaper than anything you bought in the hotel.
Wow.
So that part, because shout out to everybody that did what we did and brought your own damn drinks, because that bar was taking advantage of people with them prices. But I think outside of that, the only other thing that I will mention
this is a huge patty.
This is the last thing. It's just accessibility. We just got to be a little bit better with the accessibility. Because, like, for example, the food truck rally, for some of the attendees who were in a wheelchair, they couldn't, like, the way that it was, there was no ramp for them to get into the area where the food truck rally was. And then, too, because it's not a big hotel, you've got 3 elevators that are going nonstop, and everything else is escalators.
And most of the panels are on the 3rd floor. You got to get, like, the escalators don't go to the 3rd floor. Like, because I'm able-bodied, I was able to, like, take the escalators up to the 2nd floor and then walk up the stairs to get to the 3rd floor. But absolutely, if I was in a wheelchair, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So I think high level, those are the things that were not so great. But let's talk about some of the things that were amazing.
Well,
So I want to start with the panels. And y'all, I'm not saying this because we hosted a panel. Like our panel was okay. People seem to like it. If you haven't seen it yet, you can definitely go on Facebook. It's already there. We'll probably, you got to do it. It'll probably be on YouTube as well. We've got the whole conversation. But we went to some amazing panels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to shout out the Blerd Mom 101.
That was really good.
It was
the Baroness hosted that one. That one was really, really good.
Yeah, that one was really, really great. I think that you went to the Nova Labs one, right?
Yeah, I went to this Nova Labs one. It was on Friday. The one I went to was about ring making. Just shout out to them. Really good place to extend their hand out to. Pretty much, if you want to think about it high level, almost think like a gym without gym equipment, and instead, if you need to like build like plastic pieces with 3D pieces, props. Your props or anything like that, or if you need to build like a Green Lantern ring or something, like they have almost everything you need if you're a cosplayer and you want to build some original pieces. So shout out to Nova Labs for basically coming in and just letting us know what they have. It was really amazing. Just everything that they had. So that one was really nice. I really liked the Sailor Boom panel. Yeah. They brought a lot of energy. Shout out to them for explaining kind of how they got into it. And then just their views on their list on how they roll down through the night. But I think it was really important to hear them speak about just some of the hardships that they face being female and being women in the space and that type of thing. I like that they didn't harp on it. Mm-hmm. They mentioned some of the hardships they had, but they mentioned also how they go about persevering over it. So shout out to them. That panel was really, 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 it was really good. I like that panel.
I think, but funny enough, one of the people that's kind of embroiled in the controversy of the cosplay contest, cosplayer known as Wreck-It Ronnie, she actually put on a fantastic panel about how to monetize your hobbies, your Blerd hobbies. And it was great because it wasn't just like, oh, look at what I've done and this is how I make money.
It was overall. It was actually very, very just educational. Mm-hmm. It wasn't big upping herself. It was just kind of like, this is some recommendations I'm making. So.
Yeah, I forget the young man's name that did the panel.
I think it was him, bro. Yeah. If I said it wrong, then I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they literally, they gave you tangible items that you could do regardless of what space you were trying to grow in. Yeah. So I think that was really, really good. Also, going back to Sailor Boom, y'all, their party was fucking lit. Like, them two, they know how to get people excited. Like, they had they had done some amazing work with a lot of the anime music and then transition it well into party music. It was a great show.
Yeah, I think that overall, if going to their panel the next day, it definitely started making a little bit more sense. And listen, it's just one of those things where it makes sense. If women want to dance to it, it's what keeps the guys around. Mm-hmm. You can have all the hottest beats that you want ever and just great lyricism and stuff. And let's be honest, does the lady want to dance to it?
Right. Nobody's trying to dance to fucking Jizza.
Right. Because otherwise you just got a circle of ciphers going on. Right. And then we might as well be in Brooklyn or in the Bronx or something like that. And then, and no one was here for that. Everyone was here just to dance and have a good time. So they put on a really, really good party. I really, that. Theirs was really, really good on Friday night.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, the party on Saturday was okay. There were some things about it I liked. There were some things about it mainly that I didn't like.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, and honestly, I just think that that Sailor Boom did a better set than the other DJs that were involved.
Yeah, that's personal opinion. Listen, if you're watching this, it's a matter of taste that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm, I'm not going to sit here and highlight because everything is opinion. Yeah. I liked Friday's set a little bit better than I liked Saturday's set.
Yeah, but
that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, you can still turn up on Saturday. Don't get me wrong, but it was a different vibe. The other thing that I personally really enjoyed was going into the tabletop game room and having the opportunity. There was
nerd. Go ahead.
Whatever. I'm not the only nerd. Shout out Raymond and Mike for getting in on that with me. But there was a gentleman there who is creating an RPG. He had 2 RPGs that he was creating, and he was literally there just testing the games out. And so it was one of the things. It's like, hey, do you want to play my game? It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but not really, because there's aliens and murder and shit. And I was here for all of that. But it was really cool because it was a fun game, but also he really was taking feedback. He wanted to know what we thought of the game and how to improve it. And funny enough, a friend of a friend of a friend actually sent a link to his website where he highlighted what happened at Blerdcon, and we actually kind of made his little blog picture of us playing, because he had run a couple of games. Yeah. But it was a really cool experience, because if you've never played a tabletop RPG, it was a great chance to kind of learn the basics, because the mechanics of all of them are kind of the same. It's just, you know, different things. But the thing about it was, you had us doing that. You had folks on the other side playing Cards Against the Humanity. You had other folks like playing Uno. Like, everybody was just enjoying playing games.
Yeah.
And it was dope.
It was really good. I especially, like always, like the last time, I appreciate that they brought out just regular old video games. I like whooped up on some folks in Marvel Capcom 2. And then like I think I played Excite Bike, which I hadn't played in a while.
Shit, I didn't see Excite
Bike. Shout out for getting Super Pac-Man. I forgot what the difference between Super Pac-Man and regular Pac-Man was. And so it took me like 5 to 6 turns to figure it out. And then once I figured it out, I was like, oh yeah, I don't got time for this. What I will say is that in the console game rooms though, what could have just been a little bit better is maybe you should put something out to see like if folks are going to be playing like a little bit more Smash. I would have loved to have gotten and played some Smash. I would have loved like 8-player Smash, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But they had like one TV set up with Smash and then like 2 controllers. They had Mario Kart on one of the TVs and again 2 controllers. And like some of these games, like, I mean, shout out to Nintendo, they make them for big settings. And so you could have had 6 or 7, because sometimes the line was getting long. You could have had 6 or 7 TVs just set up with like 8 controllers each just to play Smash. And we all like just would have taken turns like coming in and out.
Yep.
Because it's Smash, and who the hell doesn't like Smash?
Right.
And it's Mario Kart, and who the hell doesn't like Mario Kart? Yeah. And so I mean, I heard the tournaments. Here's what I'll say about the tournaments. Please don't put them at the bottom of the escalators. It makes everything really, really messy.
It was messy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is what it is. I've heard some other complaints. I'm sure that person will put them on their own show of their complaints about how they felt a tournament should be run, especially a Tekken 7 tournament should be run. That is not my jam. I am not going to get into that.
Eric will talk about it over the weekend, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to talk about it. But like I said, I'll end with this. I think the highlight is just the camaraderie and then the cosplay. Like I don't care.
Oh my gosh.
I am not one of those people that care whether you went to Target, you went to Halloween Spirit, or you made the whole thing yourself. I just appreciate seeing that you cared enough about this character that you decided to cosplay as that person. And to do it. And so highlights, and I felt like the range was great. And so like someone came as Tom Nook, and Maria ended up harassing him about his prices for things.
My Animal Crossing people, y'all know Tom Nook is ripping us off. That's all I'm saying.
And you're gonna pay it. And so that was funny. There was Major Payne there, and as soon as he came in, the whole first floor blew up. Major Payne being there was amazing. And so like you get some characters like that just they have their own little thing, and they're not necessarily doing the anime or the superhero route. I will say this year there weren't as many Miles Moraleses. That may have to do with how far away we removed are from Spider-Man, but also maybe they all just didn't get their COVID cards, and so you know what? Maybe we'll see you next year. Mm-hmm. They're like, let's be honest, like the Demon Slayer, that was probably the most cosplayed. Shout out to all the Demon Slayer folks. And then the second one I would probably say would be My Hero,
yes!
which is definitely awesome. My favorite criminal so far, I didn't think anyone was going to cosplay, was Gentle Criminal. And I actually
La
saw
Brava.
La Brava was there too. And they were together and it was amazing. But shout out to the ones that also keep coming back consistently. Shout out to Princess Saiyans. Your Prince and your Prince and Vegeta mix up every year.
It's always amazing.
It's always
and
amazing.
He changes it. It's never quite the same.
Changes it all the time. So you're doing God's work over there, Princess Saiyans. You really, really are. But I mean, listen, there was a bunch of Mirkos. And I was kind of like, oh wow, Mirko, I wouldn't have thought. But you know what? That's the beautiful part of Blerdcon, that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And so yeah, no, I just thought that it was great. Nobody was judging anybody. Everybody could just be themselves. And yeah, that was great. The cosplay for me is always like top one or two why I go to Blerdcon.
Absolutely. And all of the cosplayers are so welcoming. Like, they welcome questions about their costumes. They will take a picture with you. Nobody's like, oh, I'm too good, don't come near me. Like, it's just love on top of love on top of love. Absolutely. And to Jose's point, you've got people who are doing like authentic, like that Gentle Criminal was just perfect. And really there were a lot of costumes like that. Like, for example, my brother did Overhaul. And with the wig and everything, like, he looked great. And there were a couple of other overhauls, and everybody's overhaul was a little bit different, and they were all fantastic. Yep. But what I really liked was that you saw some people really having some fun with the characters. So like, there were these 3 cosplayers there, and they were doing Wario, Waluigi, and Princess Peach.
Allies, by the way.
But the way that they did theirs was they were doing like the Mario Sports. And so like they were walking around with like a golf club, and it was really cute, and it was fun. And a lot of people did that with their different costumes. There was something else I wanted to say about the cosplay. Oh, also super inclusive, because just about every character, especially with the My Hero ones, because there were so many of them.
Yeah, that's true.
You literally got them in every shape, size, and color. Yep. Period. And everybody's was great. The only thing I will say with the cosplay this year that was a little surprising to me was that the Sailor Gang, because y'all are not Sailor Scouts, y'all are a whole ass gang, because it's so many of y'all normally.
Beat people up.
There were not as many Sailor Scout / gang members this year. And I missed it a little bit, because they get together, they do the Sailor Scout parade, they sing the song. So ladies and gents, if you guys did do it, I missed it. And I'm sad that I missed it, but I can't wait to see it in 2022.
I was going to say the same thing too. I was like, hopefully we get it back in 2022. I did see a little congregation, but let's be honest, in 2019, you knew when they were there, because, pardon me if you are a Sailor Scout, I don't know what song you guys are singing most of the time, but when that song goes up, every Sailor Scout will jump down off the balcony, find themselves a tuxedo mask, and just 10,000 pictures are being taken. I've never watched Sailor Moon. Apparently there's personalities for these ladies. I didn't know that. I just thought they were fighter. I'm sorry. Maybe before next Blerdcon, I'll actually watch a Sailor Moon and figure out what's going on there. But yeah, no, you're right. Ordinarily, they're there before you actually know that they're there.
Yes.
And this year,
you hear them before you see them.
Yeah, exactly. And this year wasn't the case. So hopefully, maybe in 2022, they come back.
Yeah. So guys, that's pretty much it. That's just a quick run. I mean, listen, we can sit here and talk for hours about it. It was great. I'll leave you with this. Yes, there were issues. There's no question. That doesn't mean, I've seen a lot of people on Facebook like, oh, I've never been. Should I still go after all of this? Yes, it's an amazing event. And, yes, there are issues. There's issues with every single con is going to have some issues. Sure. And hopefully, Mr. Hilton and the rest, or Mr. George and the rest of the team will work to improve upon these things. But it is still an amazing event. You are not going to feel that type of energy if you were a Blerd anywhere else. No. And you should check it out. Get the 3-day pass. Try to be there for all 3 days and enjoy it, because there is a ton to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll leave it with this. I was speaking with one of the vendors, and she was saying that like she tries to sell her stuff in like hodgepodge places in the city that she's from, but it's not until she comes to Blerdcon that she actually feels that the people get it, and so the community there. At the end of the day, like I said, I could sit here and I can enumerate all the issues that I had with Blerdcon. And at the end of the day, you would think, oh, well, then you're not going to go next year. No,
No,
absolutely.
still going.
I'm still going to go next year. I will still support. And if nothing else, I am going to be with the community of people that are there. I think it's all about what you're going for. I'm going for the community first. The amenities are amazing, but I'm going for the community. I'm going for the cosplay. I'm going for the good conversations. I'm going for the panels. I'm going for the safe space that I don't get in my everyday life. And so that's why I go anyway.
Absolutely. So, guys, that's it. That's just me and Jose's take. As I said at the beginning of this, definitely check out Concentrated Podcast episode this week. We're going to be going into a much longer and probably way more detailed breakdown of Blerdcon 2021. If you like the video, please make sure to like. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comments, especially if you were at Blerdcon.
Yeah.
Let us know if your thoughts were similar to ours or if they're different.
And that's fine too.
Exactly. We welcome all discourse. I will warn you right now, though, don't come for us because we will come back at you. And that's not the energy that this video is intended for.
Positive.
It's all positive. That's
keep
not
it
what
positive.
Blerdcon is about. Let's be respectful of each other. And
All
Eric,
love.
yeah, love is love. That's it, guys. So we'll talk to you next time. Bye.